Well, hi everyone. I'm so excited you're joining us today for the Connection Show, Inspiring Hope, Health, and Healing. And today I have an amazing guest that's joining me, Kimberly Fletcher, the CEO of Moms for America. You'll just be so excited to hear her story. But before we begin hearing from her, I'd love for you to hear a message from Holy Hydrogen. Do you desire better health? Do you desire your connective tissue and inflammation to go down in your body? Well, listen to this message from Holy Hydrogen. Make sure when you order these products, you put in the code Braveheart so you can receive $100 off. We'll be right back.
Hydrogen is used by health professionals as a powerful antioxidant and the number one tool to fight inflammation. Studies show therapeutic potential in cancer, diabetes, digestive, and heart issues, and essentially every organ and system in the body. This is not medical advice, because I'm not your doctor, but if you have any health concerns, I strongly recommend that you learn more about hydrogen. Get educated at holyhydrogen.com and order the best hydrogen generator known to man. Use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Because hydrogen is the smallest molecule in existence, it can pass through the cell membrane and even the blood-brain barrier to clear out inflammation and free radical damage where other antioxidants just can't get to. Visit holyhydrogen.com to see the latest technology that elevates your immune system and fights inflammation. Search their research library to see if hydrogen has a track record for helping a health concern you're dealing with. Make sure to use code BRAVEHEART for $100 off your order. Remember, holyhydrogen.com.
The Connection Show. Inspiring hope, health, healing. Connecting the dots of your story and transforming your life. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds.
The Connection Show is back again, and I cannot wait for you to hear the story about Kimberly Fletcher, who now lives in Branson, Missouri. So, Kimberly, welcome to the show. We're grateful to have you on board. Oops, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. I thought I undid that.
Welcome to the show, Kimberly.
Glad to be here.
Well, Kimberly, on this show, we would love for you to share the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of your life so that as you share your story, hopefully the audience's lives can be transformed, because we really believe that stories impact lives. So can you take us back to being a little girl, if you were called Kimberly or Kimmy or Kim, and then take us back to your childhood, moving forward through junior high, high school, and then where you are today?
Okay. Well, when I was a little girl, they did call me Kimmy. I was little Kimmy. I don't know why, but that's what all my grandparents and aunts and uncles all called me. There was no big Kimmy, so I still don't understand why they called me little Kimmy, but they did. So that was the icon that went through our family. I grew up in a family with two sisters, my mom and dad, and where I really feel like my roots were in Cowansville. It's outside of Pittsburgh, Cowansville, Pennsylvania. And that was where I really spent my growing up years. While our family moved a lot. And that's the reason why I feel like Cowansville is always my homestead, if you will. Our family homestead was there. We have property there from back in the Revolutionary War. We had an ancestor who fought in the Revolutionary War, and General Washington gave him land for his service, and that land became the town of Middlesex, and he became the postman. And shortly after he became the postman, he then everybody started to refer to the town as Cowanstown and then Cowansville. And so the name just kind of took root. And Cowansville's been there for over 200 years. Wow. And it's where my grandmother spent her, it's really my great grandmother. So it was my mother's father's mother. And she lived in the Parsons house by the church there. And every summer I would go and I would visit for several weeks. And that was the only real consistency I had as far as a landing place throughout my life. From the time I was born until I graduated from high school, we had lived in over 23 houses and towns, and I had gone to 13 different schools. In fourth grade alone, I went to 3 different schools. And it was largely because of my dad's work. And he started out as a gas station attendant, and he worked his way up to being an executive at a hospital. And it caused us to have to move a lot through his career. And there was not really any real stability from where we lived. When I was in 5th and 6th grade, we lived in the same place in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania for both those years. And that was the longest that we ever lived anywhere in one place. And outside of that, it was just constant moving, constant reestablishing. And so I didn't have those long-term friends or roots that a lot of people have. Where those roots were, as I said, they were in Cowansville, Pennsylvania. And in Cowansville, Pennsylvania, there weren't really a lot of little kids. It was mainly my great grandmother and all my great aunts and uncles that were all in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and that's who I hung around with. So I got to know older people and feel very comfortable with them. It was very easy for me to acclimate myself as we were moving around to places because I had to. If I wanted to make friends, I had to make them, because if I didn't, nobody would even know I was there. And I was a very social kind of person. An extrovert, and I liked to be able to connect with people. But as I got older, in school, it wasn't that I started to be ostracized as much as I just was unseen, because we moved so much. And I would come in, and by the time you get to middle school, you don't get the whole "let's welcome our new student." They don't do that anymore once you get to middle school. So middle school and high school, those were kind of tough years for me. And I started to become.
Where were you, Kimberly, within the family tree of siblings? Were you firstborn, middle child?
I'm the oldest.
And so
I'm the oldest.
So with all that moving, were you close with your 2 sisters, where at least you felt like you had somebody to connect with, or was that differences at home?
It wasn't really that there were differences as much as my sisters were only 2.5 and 3.5 years younger than me, but I wanted friends. I never really looked at them as friends. They were just those annoying little sisters. And mainly that was because I was the oldest. Yeah. And so I was always the one babysitting. And so they would always refer to me as the bossy one, because I was thrust into that position. And I would always refer to them as the little snotty, annoying ones that I always had to be stuck with. It was very annoying. And so
with that then, let's slow down the video, because I like to go deeper if we could. So with that, instance of moving and being an extrovert and wanting connection, when the connections moved along slowly, what kind of emotions were going on inside of you, and how did you process them? Did you, sometimes I've talked to people that when they have loss, like relationship loss or connection loss, they can resort to book reading, or they can resort to acting out with food, with binge eating, or they can act out later on with drugs or alcohol. How did you process that emotional pain of disconnection when you wanted to connect?
It's funny, because I didn't really realize that it was emotional pain. I just felt like I was alone, and my source of fulfillment, if you will, were friends. I relied heavily on friendships. And so I was always trying to find that person or group of persons that I could connect with and feel like that was a safe place, like I was accepted there. And there came a point in time, all through middle school, there were a group of kids who I hung out with. And I guess I would call them my friends, but I didn't really know them that well. It's just we had lunch together. We were all in the same building together. I always kind of gravitated to teachers. There were teachers that I clung to and felt like they were more of my friends than the kids my own age when I was in middle school. And I was sitting at the table, the cafeteria table one day, and I had a phrase that I always said. It was always like, "You people," because my dad was from Pennsylvania, and a Pennsylvania phrase is "yuns guys," and I was like, "That's crazy." So I would say "you guys," but I wanted to be different. I was always trying to do something to be different. So I always said "you people." You people are crazy, and it was just like saying "you guys," you know. So I was sitting at the table, and we were talking about something, and one of the girls, who happened to be black, was saying something about a joke, and I said, "You people are so crazy." And I got up and went and put my tray back, and then I came back to the table, and she was gone. And there were two of her friends that were black, and they were gone. And one of the other girls was like, "Oh my gosh, you are in so much trouble." And I said, "What?" And they said, "She's mad at you. She's gonna beat you up." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I literally, she wasn't kidding. She took that as an insult, and that I was talking about them black people. And I was like, "I'm just saying you people. I say it all the time." And that was the first time that I got, excuse me, in the face of racism. You know, I never thought about it before then. I just accepted everybody. And they felt insulted and attacked. And I was shocked, and I didn't know what to do about that. But I will tell you that she came up to me as I was leaving the cafeteria, took her tray and hit me over the back of the head and said that she was going to take me out. And for 2 to 3 weeks, I lived in absolute fear. I sat by myself at the corner, the far room of the cafeteria. It's far away from everybody as I could possibly be. And I felt like there was no one that I could reach out to. I finally reached out to a teacher one day that I trusted and had a good relationship with, I thought, and told her, and she said, "Well, we need to take this to the office." And I said, "No, if we do that, that'll just get worse, you know." And she finally convinced me to take it to the office, and it did get worse. And it was, I don't even remember what it was that finally like ended it. But I remember praying one night and just asking God to, you know, could he just intervene and make her not be so mean, and just realize that I'm just a person, and I just, you know, I didn't realize that I was saying something that was going to offend her. And I guess she just got disinterested and moved on. But I was pretty much alone the rest of that time. While this was happening, I was on a bus. We had a bus ride that was about 40 minutes long to and from school. And the kids in the back of the bus were all like the senior high kids, and they were bullies. They were absolute bullies. And they would run up and hit kids on the back of the head. There was this one girl, and her name was Cherie, and she would come up and she would hit you on the back of the head and laugh and run to the back, and they'd all laugh and everything. And I just was like, wow. And she was so pretty. And I thought, why is she so mean? I just couldn't understand it. And there was this girl at one of the bus stops, and she had flaming red hair and big freckles, and she was like the last person to get on the bus. And so there was like never a seat. And she'd come in and people would just stare at her. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. So whether I was in a seat by myself or a seat with someone else, and because we were sitting 3 to a seat a lot of times, I would push the person over in the seat with me so she could sit. And we became really good friends. And during that time, there was a lot of really ugly stuff that was going on the back of the bus. And they were throwing books, taking kids' books from them, ripping up homework assignments. I mean, it was just like, what is wrong with you people? Do you have nothing better to do? And so one day there was a plastic bag with something in it that flew up into the front of the bus and landed right on the, I don't remember her name, but little redhead, landed on her book. And it was a used tampon inside this bag. And I'm like, okay, you know what? She's like, that's it. That's enough. And she stood up, she turned around, and she threw it back to the back of the bus. And the bus driver yelled at her. And we're like, okay. And the bus driver's up there just not doing anything, letting all of this stuff happen. And it's like, what is going on? And so we got off the bus that day and she said, that's it, we're done. And she's like, come with me. And so we went in, she took me to, went to the office, and we told the principal, this is happening and this needs to stop. And so the next day, it was the next day or the day after, I can't remember, the bus driver gets on the bus. So here's what happened. And we didn't know this until later. But the principal pulled the bus driver in and said, if you cannot keep control of your bus, we're going to keep control of it for you. We will bring in our security guards or teachers or whoever to come in and ride that bus and monitor it. We'll have the parents come in and ride the bus. They will be thrown off the bus. You contain your bus or we'll contain it. If you can't handle it, we'll get somebody who can. So we get on the bus that day, and he picks up my friend, the last person, and he stops the bus, and he gets up and he turns around and he says, I just want to make it very clear to you all right now, and all of you that are having these issues in the back of the bus, you're going to get kicked off the bus. We have security guards. They're going to come and ride on the bus with us, and anybody who causes any problems will be off the bus. And if you get kicked off the bus, you will be suspended from school. And the principal of both schools has confirmed to me that that is exactly what's going to happen. Problem solved. They quit. But Cherie, I came home one day before it was finally resolved. I came home one day and I told my mom finally that it was happening. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to go to school. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I was anxious all the time. I did not want to go to school because I did not want to have to get on that bus. And I begged and pleaded, if there's some way we can, find a ride for you, I don't have to get on the bus. And so she finally, pulled out of me what the problem was. And I said, I don't know any of their names. The only one I know is Cherie. I hear them talk about her name all the time. And so my mom and dad looked up her first and last name, found where she lived. She just lived down the road. And they made an appointment to go and visit with her parents. And I was like so embarrassed, But we went down there, and Cherie Cherie was in her bedroom, and they called her out of her bedroom and said, Cherie, is this really happening? And they were shocked. They said, we're really shocked. We can't believe that she's doing this, because for the last 2 years, she has been brutally bullied by those same kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get what she's doing. I get what she's doing. She's just trying to not be bullied. And so she bullies other kids. She becomes part of the crowd. So they called their daughter out and said, is this true? Is this happening? And she said, yes. And you could tell she was just distraught. And I looked at her and she knew what I was thinking. I get you. And she said, I guarantee you it won't happen again. The next day, she was sitting in the front of the bus, and all the kids in the back were just absolutely brutalizing her. They didn't pick on anybody else anymore. They only picked on her. And so when that tampon came being thrown up from the back of the bus, it was intended for her, landed on my friend's lap, and we took care of it. And I remember Cherie coming up to us at the end of school that day or something. She came up. She was in ninth grade in high school, and at some point in time, she came up to us and thanked us for doing that. And we're like, hey, we got to stand together. And then we became really good friends. I always wonder, what happened to her? Where is she? She's probably, very successful and having a great life, and all those dumb bullies in the back are probably, having terrible lives. But when you prey on other people to be able to make yourself feel good, it never works out in your favor. So I always looked for those friends and those connections.
So with that, let's pause for just a moment so the audience can catch up. So if any of you guys have been bullied and can connect the dots of this story, we're here and we're seeing you in your presence. Because Kimberly, I went to treatment for eating disorders, and bullying was one of the predominant reasons that caused eating disorders of anorexia and bulimia, and really a predominant disease for kids that start cutting themselves because they're so much in pain emotionally that they start cutting themselves with razors and pens just so they can feel alive because they feel so dead inside. And so for those of you who have gone through this, our hearts go out to you, because it really is a horrific thing when kids bully kids and each other. So I just wanted to pause for a moment to recognize anyone who's struggling with that today.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that it's a lot harder today, because back then, and that's what I wanted to emphasize, is back then you could call it out, you could target it, you could address the issue, but now it's being done online, digitally, and it's affecting kids in a different way. And I have personally known several young boys, all boys, no girls that I know of at this point, but 7 different boys that I knew personally who took their lives in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think, the whole COVID thing, being locked out of school and not being able to associate with your friends, if those were the things that gave me fulfillment and helped me go through the difficult times, what do we do when we take that all away from the kids? They don't have their friends, they don't have their activities. And that was really the transition for me from middle school to high school. We moved to a new school, and I got involved in drill team, I got involved in choir, I got involved in drama, I got involved in everything I possibly could. And while I really was very introverted throughout high school until my senior year. Those 3 years that I spent at that one high school, I really I had one friend, and then she just kind of went in a direction that I didn't want to go. She was drinking and doing a lot of things like that, and I just didn't want to go in that direction. And so then I was alone, and I was feeling alone again. And right about that time, I started my junior year in high school, and my younger sister, started freshman year in high school, and we became absolute best friends. And we became each other's friend. We were writing each other back and forth between classes, and through our junior year. And then we moved to another school in high school, and we continued to stay very close friends through my senior year in high school. And it was an incredible friendship that developed. That it was like she was always that really good friend that I didn't realize I had. And then there was my poor younger sister who was just kind of left out of everything.
Well, so pause that for a moment, because this is a reflection of my own life. So I'm just wondering, so that sister that became your best friend, but you were still 3 years apart. What happened to her emotionally when you left? Did you go off to college? Did you leave home and go to college?
Yeah, but that isn't where she had the emotional separation.
Okay.
I started homeschooling my kids in 2001, and Teresa and I were really good friends. We got married. We shared stories of our marriage. We were at each other's weddings. She was there for the birth of my second child. I mean, and we just constantly shared with each other. When our children got older, we'd swap them. My daughter and her daughter became really good friends, so they'd spend time at her house, they'd come spend time at my house, and she lived in Tennessee. Or where'd she live? No, she lived in Missouri, and I lived in Tennessee. And so we would be able to just drive and share. Sometimes they flew. When I moved to Virginia, she lived in Texas, and so it was a little bit further, but we still stayed connected. But in 2001, I started homeschooling my kids, and Teresa, while she was just a very engaged mother, she was always talking about her me time. She needed her me time, and her me time was when she sent her kids to school. I could do whatever I want when I send them to school. I don't have to deal with my kids. And I was like, wow, okay. And I never thought, I started homeschooling, and suddenly all my kids are home all day long, all the time.
No me time. No me time.
No me time. It was an adjustment, and you had to figure out how are you going to get a little bit of that me time. And there was my husband was in the Air Force, and he was at the time 9/11 had happened, and he was actually stationed at the Pentagon, and through a series of literal miracles, he came home safe that day. And for the next 2 years, he was gone a lot, living at the Pentagon during the wartime. And that was really hard. It was a really difficult time because I have the kids home. I've got to take care of all the medical appointments, and dealing with the finance. I'm just running the house basically. It's almost like he's, TDY or TDY is temporary duty, or uh, just deployed. And he would come home. He'd try to come home every weekend, but that didn't always work out. And sometimes he'd be able to come home in the evenings, but it was really hard. And I was also in a leadership position in church. And so it just felt like everything was just mounting on me. And I remember one day I just felt like I just couldn't take it. Everything was coming at me, and I just needed to get out. And so I took my cell phone. I told my daughter, who was 14, I think at the time, you gotta watch the kids. I just need a break. And so I left. I drove down to the grocery store and I called my sister. And at that point in time in my life, all I needed was for somebody to remind me that everything's okay, and that I'm doing what God told me to do, and tomorrow's another day. Keep doing what you're doing. You're in the right path. That's not what she told me. What she told me was, well, your problem is you need to put your kids back in school. And I felt like God had directed me to teach these kids at home. And I'm telling you, it was definitely the right decision. I can look back now and go, wow, I saved a lot of my kids by doing that. But she just didn't understand. And at that moment, I realized I can't talk to her anymore about this. This is the thing that's the most important to me right now, is making sure that I'm a good mom and I'm teaching my kids what they need and being there for them. And if all she's going to say is, don't do it, you're doing everything wrong, you need your me time, then this isn't the right person to call. And so that's really where we started to become distanced. And she thought that I don't know, was angry with her or something. And I wasn't. I just reached out to people who would be that person who would say, you're doing a good job, keep going, this is what God wants you to do, that. And so I developed really close friendships with other homeschool moms. And we just kind of fell apart. And it was very, very hard for her, to the point where she almost became mean and vindictive. But she and my other sister became very close. And then they would gang up on me saying, well, Kimberly should do this and Kimberly should do that. And I was like, live your life, you guys. It's all good. But by that point in time, I married a guy who things just roll off his back. And he had these phrases from Australia. He spent time in Australia. And it said, don't sweat what you can't change. And not a drama. They say not a drama all the time in Australia. And so he'd say, it's not a drama. Don't sweat what you can't change. It's all good. And
so with that happening to you, because of time frame here, and for those who don't know, because I want to touch on it a little bit before we have to end today. So with that occurring in your life, and you really growing strong, because you're a strong woman, I know this about you. Do you feel like that was God preparing you for this new part of your life today with Moms for America, with cottage groups, almost like affinity groups of connecting where people are, because you obviously had to learn how to connect with other homeschoolers?
I did. And I really think it started in high school, where I had to learn to connect with other people.
Other bullies. You had to connect with other people who got bullied.
Yeah, right. Well, and I had to be able to navigate through multiple different relationships. And I think because of that, I was able to recognize and see, where is a person, what is their pain point, if you will? What do they need right now? And relationships are something that everybody needs. And what kind of relationship do you need? Because they're going to change. And you have your marriage relationship when you're married, and that's important and that's sustaining. Okay, that's great. But sometimes you need something more or different to add to that, or to supplement it, if you will. And what relationship is it? Is it a relationship with you and your child? Is a relationship that you need with a friend? Do you need a friend? Do you need a group of moms? And what I realized is, when you can bring moms together, they all kind of figure out what their pain points are, and they all support each other. And when somebody will say something like, well, I'm dealing with this, another one will go, oh my gosh, me too. This is what I did. Oh my gosh, really? Did that work? And we used to have this spirit of sisterhood that thrived in our country. And we would, when a baby was born, we celebrated it with baby showers. We had wedding showers. We had, coffee clubs, and we would do quilting bees, and you would have the older generation with the younger generation, all different ages would come together, and you would learn from each other and support and encourage each other. That just kind of doesn't exist anymore unless you create it yourself. And that's really kind of one of the things we did with Moms for America, is we created these little pockets, right where you are, where everybody's so focused on your friends on social media that you never see. But what about the people that live next door, across the street, that go to church with you? And we're so disconnected from the people who are closest to our lives that we're kind of disconnected as a culture now. And what I wanted to do was bring people back together and connect us where we are to support each other in the battles we're facing, whatever they are, in our own internal battles, the battles in our family, the battles in our community, whatever they are, that we can lift, sustain, and support each other.
Yeah, and not always go through life with a smile on our face saying everything's great. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm fine. And they're not. They're falling apart, and they don't have anyone they trust. One of my favorite sayings in the whole world, Kimberly, is look for the similarities in someone else's life instead of the differences. If we could just come to that starting point of seeing a similarity instead of a differences, and then show up and be real. But continue on. I just needed to share that.
Yeah, well, the other thing is it's the Facebook family thing. You always put your best face and your best family pictures, and everything's. And so what we're doing is we're looking. We go to church on Sunday, and we see the best of everyone, and we go on Facebook. We see the best of the family features, and we're judging ourselves based on their best days or their best application, and we know the whole picture in our family. We're looking at our lives going, oh my gosh, we should be more like them. You have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. And I can tell you for a fact that the people who are, the Facebook fancies that are putting all the best up there, they're doing it because they want you to see the best that they are, because they know the garbage that's going on behind the scenes. And it's a way to say, all right, I've accomplished something. We're doing okay. I've done this, and we shouldn't judge our lives based on the best days of everyone else. Right. And you go into church on Sunday and you see the best of everyone, and you start comparing yourself to, oh, look how that family is. And that's what I did when I was homeschooling. I was always comparing my homeschool experience with everyone else. Oh my gosh, they're like concert pianists. I'm failing. Oh my gosh, they just got a science award. I'm so failing, And you have no idea, as I would sit down and talk to these moms, and they would share the struggles and everything that they were having, I was like, oh my gosh, we're just all on the same bus. We're all just trying to figure it out. And we're going to have highs and lows, and we're going to have, great achievements and big failures. But we learn from them all. And I just think we just need to be a lot more understanding of each other and of ourselves. And know that, what's that song? We're all just schlubs on the bus trying to make it back home. And that's it. We're all just doing the best that we can. But when we connect together in these, in our own local communities with people who are there, we have people right there who can shore each other up. And you know what? When a baby's celebrated, then you come together and you celebrate it together. And it's an amazing thing to see.
Well, what I'd like to do is just pause for one moment here. My mouse keeps jumping, but I'm going to pause for a moment, and I'd love to bring up Kimberly's bio. So here's her bio, and the name of the company, the non-for-profit, is called Moms for America, and you can find her at momsforamerica.us. And so let's just pause for a moment and take us just on a 5-minute journey of you've got all this passion, you're starting to see this, and a light bulb goes off and you start this foundation. if you can share just a bit. We can't go too much in depth because this would take 5 more shows because this is an amazing organization.
Well, the light bulb definitely did go off, but it's kind of one of those things where it's more like a burning in your bosom. And this is what I tell people: when you want to have a clear understanding of if it's coming from God or if it's just coming from you, or where did this come from, I always refer back to the Indiana Jones movie. That's the 3rd movie where they're on the search for the Holy Grail, and all through this search, they're having these clues, and the Harrison Ford is following the clues, and everywhere he goes, it leads him to the next clue that's getting closer to where he is. Every clue panned out. So he gets to this one place where he's in this cavern, huge, deep, miles long, deep cavern with rock walls everywhere. And the clue is take a leap of faith. And he's going, no.
Nope.
And then he realizes, he looks back at all the clues, and he thinks about, and finally he's like, okay. So he closes his eyes and he takes a step, and he lands on solid ground. And suddenly you see this rock bridge that goes all the way across to the other side of the cavern, but you couldn't see it because it blended in with all the rocks. And that's when you know it's from God, when everything in your head is saying heck no, and you want to run the other way, but something deep in your heart and soul is saying take a leap of faith. And that's what I felt. I felt God calling me to head this national organization. It was supposed to be about families and freedom, and that's all I had. And I was just, for 2 weeks, I would go back and forth, like, what is this supposed to be, and what do you call it? And the main question I had was, why me? I'm just a mom. There are so many people who know more than me, who could do a better job. Why me? And God answered me. And he said, because they'll do it their way, and I want it done my way. And he knew that I would have to do everything on my knees because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But he qualifies who he calls. And whatever God is calling you to do, whatever it is, and a lot of times it's these trials and challenges and hardships that build us to be who God wants us to be. This world wasn't supposed to be everything is sunshine and roses. It was supposed to be a challenge. It was supposed to be hard. We can do hard things, and we can come on the other side, and we can bear our burdens, and we can bear them well.
And I love that because, you know, one of my favorite epiphanies that God gave me personally was, and when people think they can go through life alone, when they're lonely and they think that, look at Jesus, look to Jesus. Why did Jesus choose 12 disciples? I mean, he was almighty. Did he really need connection? He had connection with God the Father. I mean, you know, he's God, you know, he's Jesus. Did he need that? But he showed us in life how much we need each other through the manifestation of his 12 disciples, which were all different. They argued. They thought one was better than the other. They judged each other. I mean, it was phenomenal, the choices he made of his disciples. And so,
and he gave us the best lessons in Gethsemane when he was in the darkest hour. He called on God to, you know, please send angels, and the angels came and comforted him. He wasn't alone then in his darkest hour. Mm-hmm. And when he was on the cross, he said, please forgive them. I mean, if we can have a forgiving heart and realize that, you know, there are going to be people who are going to be mean, and we don't forgive for us, or we don't forgive for them, we forgive for us. If we don't forgive people for the wrongs that they've done to us, or the wrongs we feel that they've done to us, we're encasing ourselves in a prison, and they're free. We're the ones who are imprisoning ourselves when we don't forgive. And that doesn't mean you forget what they've done or that you dismiss what they've done. They need to be, you know, be held accountable in this life or the next, or whatever the thing was. But we need to release ourselves of that pressure. And that's really the ability to forgive, the ability to connect, to rely heavily on my Father in heaven, because I know that people quote that scripture all the time. God won't give you anything you can't bear. Well, they forget about the rest of that verse with him.
Well,
God won't give you anything you can't bear if you're with him. You know, he will sustain you.
And then getting to a place, which this is really a challenge for me right now. I'm struggling in this arena in my own life, is getting to a place where when we meet someone the first time and see them, We don't prejudge them with the way they look, the way they talk, their education. And I'm getting a real awakening, Kimberly. Since I talked to you last, I started Uber driving. And you cannot believe some of the people that I've picked up, that the second they get in the car, and they may be from a completely very low income part of life, and they have to take an Uber because they don't even have a car just to get to work. And the first time I started driving and someone like this got into my car, like you said, I just said like this, like you said like this. So I did that. Someone of this nature of their job got into my car. My brain went right to, oh, they don't have any money. They're not going to tip me. They're la, 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 la. And I just started thinking, Lord, help me to be just an angel in the car today and love on them. Like, I don't know who they are and what they're going through or anything. And not even care if they tip me, but just I'm giving them a ride from here to here because they asked for a service. And it is really a challenge for me to get through this and realize that they need love like anybody else. Anyone does. So, so let's end this. And then I really want people to go to your website. And please go to the website and read. Click on each tab to really understand this phenomenal ministry, I believe, that God has brought to the world for moms. So talk, if you wouldn't mind, about the cottage groups. So anyone that needs to connect in cottage groups, can they find these all over the country, and can people start connecting more?
Absolutely. We have groups across the country. If there's not one near you, we can help you start one. It's really easy. We affectionately call it Tupperware for Liberty. And you're just, coming in, inviting your friends, neighbors, family, and members into your home, and you're learning what the story of America is, which is really, a God story and a healing story and a freedom story. So you learn that the history and the heritage of America. You learn what your rights are, where they come from, how to effectively exercise them, and it's very empowering when you can see what America was supposed to look like, what our founders created, and how it has been so distorted into what it is. Then it gives you this hope. Well, wow, America is not bad. America is actually really great. We have this an ideal that we can look for, and it's about being whatever you can be, fulfilling that, living that American dream, and having the belief, because other people believe in you and encourage you to be able to go after that dream. And failure is actually a good thing. It helps you to know how to succeed, and it's just all the things that our founders did. You learn in these meetings, and the best part about it is you're connecting together, and it is life-changing. That's what we hear all the time. It's healing families, it's connecting communities. It's incredible just by coming together and meeting and hearing the stories of the founding families and what they did, the great experiences that have happened through history that have led us to this place, the miracles of America that we just don't talk about anymore. It is an incredible story, America is. And it starts way back. I mean, it isn't just about America. It started with, the Magna Carta and, Israel and all of these things tied together. And our founding fathers spent a lot of time searching through eons of history, centuries of history, to see how governments rose and fell and how communities, citizens and societies, lifted up and sustained themselves and how they collapsed. And they created a beautiful thing here. And while freedom can go anywhere, it's the venue that God created to nurture it.
So if someone has never been even interested in history, will they still feel like they fit in a cottage group and connect and do they start off at least first building relationships? Because there may be people that will walk in and go, I didn't know this is what I was going to do. Join a group and you have to sit around and listen to history. So is there...
Well, that's the beautiful thing about this, is you don't even realize that's what's happening. Okay. You come into these meetings and we share stories, and stories connect. They immediately connect. And once you share a story, whether it's a story from our actual history or a personal story from one of the moms involved, it's all in this resource guide that we put together. We share a story and it instantly connects everybody.
Awesome.
And they'll be like, well, I want to tell my story. Why don't I tell my story? And they all start sharing their story, and they're connected immediately. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I want to learn more. Let's do this again. And what happens is, we keep telling them, just meet once a month. Well, almost every time they're like, once a month, that's crazy. Can we meet once a week? And a lot of them are meeting once a week. And we even have young moms, because we've created Cottage Minis, where you can read a story or watch a video on your own. And then you come together once a week and you just discuss it in a play group. So your kids are all playing and enjoying each other, and you're just all talking about what you read or what you watched. And working moms are doing the same thing. They read or watch on their own, and then they come together for lunch once a week or a couple times a month, and they talk about what they read or what they watched. And so it's exciting. It's a way to connect, because it's like, oh my gosh, did you know that? I didn't know that. Holy cow. Well, let me tell you what happened to me, because that makes sense, and then it just connects everybody. It is a beautiful thing.
Wow. Well, there's also a tour going on around the country. They've been going on for a little over a year now, called the ReAwaken America Tour. So I'd like to flash to that for just a moment. I'm going to put this on the screen. Kimberly has been a guest at these. She was a guest, and when I say a guest, a speaker, at the event in Branson and several other ones. And so, do you know yet, Kimberly, will you be able to go to Nashville, or you're not sure yet?
I'm not going to be able to go to the Nashville one, but they have one scheduled in May that I'm definitely connected with, and I think they have a couple others they're working on. So,
do we know where?
I told them I would.
Do we know where the May one? Not yet. Okay.
They told me, but I can't remember. And they don't announce them. They wait closer to time to announce them. I usually know a little bit before everybody else, but the problem is sometimes at such short notice, I've already got 8 things going on. But I love to go to these tours, because it's like real America sitting in the seats to talk about connections. That is a great place to come and connect and feel a part of the body of America as well as the body of Christ. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing that they do.
Well, and a lot of people just think it's political or something like that, but it's not. It's so about God. And so if you love God, or if you're searching to get to know God, it's a phenomenal event to go to, because they have so many amazing leaders in the church. Amanda Grace, Dave Scarlett of His Glory Ministry, and of course the amazing Julie Green and Danae Clement are there. So, and then we have the American Frontline Doctors, who have so much education. So it's an amazing event. But one other thing that's coming up, I'd love to share with the audience, Kimberly, is, and you might be one that likes snow. I like it for a day or two. But what do you prefer more, Kimberly? Do you prefer a traffic jam in February in a blizzard, or do you prefer putting your toes in white, pristine sand on a beach?
Yeah, if I got a choice between those two, I'll choose the beach and the sand.
All right. Well, one person I had on my show said, I really like the snow. And he said, but I'd like to do the beach at another date, because I like the snow. So anyway, we're going to take people, whoever wants to come, because we're all about connecting. Doesn't matter who you are. And we're going to take whoever would like to join us to Aruba, to a beautiful villa on the beach, February 5th through 11th. So stay tuned and listen to the details.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm excited to bring you my biggest bedding sale ever.
Join us for the Hope, Health, and Healing Aruba Connections Getaway for men and women, February 5th through the 11th, 2023. Are you overworked? Stressed out? Feeling exhausted? Is it time to spoil yourself? Breathe in life and relax at private villas. in Aruba for 6 nights and 7 days. Join us for the Renew your mind and body. Discover greater self-awareness. Join in connection, wellness, stillness, movement, enhance inner peace. Experience amazing beaches. Enjoy snorkeling, area attractions, shopping till you drop. Dine at fabulous beachfront restaurants. Imagine releasing anxiety, reconnect with yourself, restore your soul, bring your friends. Enjoy fresh and savory cooked meals, lasting memories. Join us now. Register today. Book your flight and getaway to Aruba, February 5th through the 11th, 2023.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm excited to bring you my biggest bedding sale ever, just in time for Christmas. Get my Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98.
Pack now and see you on the island of Aruba. So with that, who doesn't want to pack their bags and go with us to Aruba? Well, we're just around the corner from Black Friday. So for those of you who are hearing this today and listening to this, if you go directly to the website, braveheartworkshops.com, you'll find my email address, braveheartworkshops@gmail.com, and my phone number. Reach out to me if you'd like to join us, and if you decide to register in November, we'll offer you $100 off your registration if you register in November. And we do have a few payment plans. So we hope to see you on the beaches of Aruba. And Kimberly, it's been a privilege. We got to keep having you back to keep sharing more of your life and story. And everyone, please go to Kimberly's site to learn more about Moms for America. Thanks again, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us on The Connection Show. Thanks for joining us today on The Connection Show, where we bring you stories that will transform your life. The Connection Show would appreciate your support. Please go to either our Patreon page or our PayPal Me Now link today. We love our podcast show guests and appreciate our listeners and YouTube subscribers. Please go to our YouTube channel called The Connection Show and Braveheart Workshops and subscribe now. Remember to click the gray bell in the All tab so you don't miss any upcoming episodes.